This is One Question Wednesday with your host, me, Mac Monroe, the Boss Builder. Your opportunity to ask me any questions and have me answer those questions on the podcast. If you're a listener to Boss Builder Podcast or HR Oxygen, you have equal opportunity for questions. So with no further delay, let's get into this week's question. Well, welcome to this week's episode of One Question Wednesday, your opportunity to ask me any questions, and I will do my best to answer them. So today's question comes from Sandy, and Sandy is from Connecticut. I probably know Sandy because I do a lot of work in Connecticut. But anyway, to help her remain anonymous, I actually just changed her name. So it says here, Mac, how can I get a grasp on the way my team communicates with my internal customers by email? They can be somewhat short and sometimes even drop in CCs strategically. Sometimes it's an embarrassment to me and our department. So again, for an old geezer like me, I can remember the day when there was no such thing as email. And if you had to say something, you actually either wrote it out on a memo or some kind of a letter, and you actually sent it through the internal mail. Or there was a time, believe it or not, where people actually just picked up the phone and they called a person. And then came email, and email gave everybody a lot of convenience. And for people that were not really comfortable actually talking to somebody, well, then of course you could just write an email. And it's not anonymous, obviously, but it enables you to send a message without having to be there and experience maybe the tension or maybe the fear. And so what's happened now is, and I won't say it's a generation thing. People say these kids these days. No, it's not. It's mostly old people like me that do this nonsense. What happens is that you send things and you're doing it in a one-way channel. And so, Sandy, what I'm going to recommend is, number one, be very clear what your team will be able to communicate by email and set your own guidelines in terms of tone, keeping in mind that some people will read into an email, and maybe some of your team may be the kind of people that are a little short and abrupt, and that's just the way they talk. So it comes across an email as if they're being really cold. And so you have to kind of send these with the receiver in mind. But maybe a second way to do this is to never ever say something by email that you would not say to a person face to face. And all this nonsense of CCing people in is no different than when we were kids and you'd have somebody that would tattle on people. That is the worst possible thing you can do. And if you blind copy somebody, that is the ultimate in being a big wimp. So never ever do that. Communicate clearly. Here's how we will talk to our customers as much as possible. We will use the same tone in an email that we would use if we were meeting them face to face. Secondly, we are going to make sure that we are not just going to copy people in just to tattle on them or to cover our own ass. That's not right either. And third and final, just make sure that you're very clear in your policy what our nature of communication is going to be. Don't let this just happen. If you just let it happen, you can be sure that someone is going to mess it up. So take control of your email. Again, if you would not say it to somebody face to face, do not put that in an email. Take charge of it. Sandy, get busy. Get after it. Hopefully that answers your question. And if you're listening in, hopefully that answers a good question for you as well. Well, that's our latest episode of One Question Wednesday. If you have a question you'd love for me to answer on the podcast, just email it to me. The email address is mac, M-A-C-K, at thebossbuilders.com. If you're a listener of HR Oxygen or Boss Builder Podcast, you have equal opportunity to ask questions. Again, mac at thebossbuilders.com, and I'll do my best to get it on the air.